Welcome everyone back to the Pommy and Oz channel. Hope you're all doing well, and we're here today to review the Carlton game versus Richmond, which is always exciting, especially when we win. So if you are new around here, hit that like button, hit that subscribe. It does help the channel out. We've seen a massive growth in subscribers recently, and we've seen a massive growth in members, so some members content coming through this week, so stay tuned for that. And let's get straight into it. So the Blues playing second bottom and really showing they were a class apart. A resounding 61-point win in a game that really played out how we expected if you watch the preview. We talked about Richmond. We're going to have to slow the game down and try and get it on their terms. And this was a real test of maturity and professionalism from the Blues of could they do that? We've seen this side before play brands of football against good clubs where you kind of have always got to be at that 10 out of 10. It's always a little bit different when you come to a side when you're really, really meant to win. I think that's a real big cultural mind shift. And that's a time that probably we've seen with the Blues in the past. They've fallen short. And Richmond did an incredible job at sticking to their game plan. If you come and watch the player ratings later, we're going to go really in depth on that. We'll try and do that today as well, as we always do. But they really stuck to their game plan. Ben Miller particularly, I was really impressed with their backline, particularly Ben Miller, in their ability to not fall for the dummy lead, which is an incredible hard thing to do. But also the way that Richmond really played the game as you would do against a better side, and that's kind of dropped back. They averaged about 14 players behind the ball even when they had the ball, and they were looking for them targets and trying to create separation that way, which Carlton did really struggle. They really did fight space well, and that was the real benefit of Richmond. But, as we said on the watch-along and why I was so calm, when you are guarding space, which is effectively what Richmond were doing, they were not guarding the man. They were trying to take the short options away and the overlap run. It's high maintenance. It's a real high-pressure game plan, and it's a bit like how we saw the Blues 2 years ago where they ran out of legs. It's a real hard, real intensive, labour-intensive system. And once that kind of stopped, the Blues managed to run away with it and show their class. So let's get in to everyone's favourite part. Let's get into the details of that. Now, this is interesting. Before the game, Carlton averaging 40, 24.6 for Richmond in stoppage. And you can see here, this is really integral, this. They stopped that, and that's what we predicted they'd do. They flood, they played the loose behind the ball. They tried to you saw how Cam McIntosh and co on the wide, they came inside. Hopper working overtime with Taranto. They tried to stop Carlton getting free ball out there, and they did an exceptional job with Nankervis as well. And this was probably a real intriguing game to see Pitternet here, because although Pitternet didn't dominate, he stopped it coming the other way. And this is where, when they really try and flood that area, that is where generally around stoppage and clearance, the lower side can really do some damage. So this is a real positive for the Blues. Although they were stung by 2 goals, they only kept them a plus 3.4, which is a real credit to what I keep saying to you guys and girls. Don't worry about the stoppage. Don't worry about the clearance. The Blues will naturally level that out because they can play dirty and they can also play exciting from there. And this was really how we expected the game to go. This is massive, this. One of the best scores recorded this year from the Blues. And the Blues, again, really showcasing why they are the real deal. Their ability to score from turnover. These are akin to the stats when Richmond used to play us there. Just the midfield pressure. The midfield brought it. And what was really key to this, and we talked about it a lot in the preview, is hurrying them up. The Blues did an incredible job when Richmond tried to set up, obviously knowing that they had to commit men back. They wanted to go short and sharp and move up in stages. The Blues did real good job at hurrying them up and making them kick long. And they set them traps. And it was interesting. The left-hand side of the Blues was probably the open side, and Richmond had to resort to attacking that because even in the first half, the Blues made massive gains. It was 90% of their scores were from turnover, the Blues. So they made that switch to go down to the more the weaker side, their left-hand side, our right. And it was really intriguing that the Blues midfield pressure then really started to uphold. The game started to open up because obviously the Blues focus on the left channel. The right channel, they don't focus so much. So there was always the open side there, and it was a risk strategy from Richmond. And the Blues exploited that on turnover. Plus 37 on turnover. Obviously, Richmond did pretty well. This was a very direct game plan for them. They slingshot over the back. But this is a real positive for us from the defensive half. This is where the Blues genuinely struggle. And you can see here that the Blues really did a real good number here in their defensive half. This is where you worry against the weaker sides. And the fact that we only had a small leverage is really, really impressive. And the Blues, obviously, they didn't have that many real clear-cut defensive half chances to score. They looked for the corridor a lot. They did the right things, and they really managed this game really professionally. So that's a real positive for it, because that's the kind of things you learn in these games. You're not always going to dominate the stat sheet. These are real professional wins where you're looking, the old soccer 2-0 win this. Forward half, this was really impressive. The Blues knew the ball was going to be locked in the defensive half of the opposition, and we said they had to bring the pressure. They had to bring the pressure and really look at causing a bit of chaos here. And the fact they had 76 plus 35.2 really showcases that. They wanted to kick them long, make them kick long, and that's what they did. And when they didn't, they were punished duly, which really started to cause a bit of chaos there. Dan Rioli had a bit of a tail wag in the fourth. Felt like it was a bit too late, and that's a brave call to run through Carlton's line of defence. And Carlton really did try and offload the space that they did by trying to create more space behind in the forward half of the ball. And at times, it almost felt like there was 18 men of the opposition in the forward 50. The Blues really, the lack of options that creates, feasted massively on there. That was a masterclass in forward half pressure from the Blues. At the centre bounce, again, like we always say, Carlton just doing what they did, even though they did try and play more defensive there, the opposition, they did an incredible job, the Blues, of really negating that, as did Richmond. Of this could have been a blowout there. It was very, very assured. And this was one of them games here, when we talk about professionalism, it might have been easy for the Blues just to flood that midfield and try and get the dominance, which would have been what Richmond wanted. It would have made Carlton vulnerable on the counter. They didn't. They stuck to their plan. They kept their width, and they waited for the moments to come with that overlap and that underlap that we always talk about. And this was a real impressive little area here. Let's talk about the pressure acts. The Blues brought the pressure of where they had done against elite opposition. Remember, a lot of this is against elite opposition. Average 6, just down by just under 4. And as you'd expect, Carlton had a lot of the ball. The pressure from Richmond was incredible, and it had to be. This needed to be over 300, though, to trouble Carlton, like into the 310s, 315s, 320s, where we've seen the Blues get. They couldn't sustain it, and the Blues really benefited from that. And this is pretty impressive from the Blues, even though that was a lopsided. Their ability to find uncontested possessions shouldn't be understated, and their ability not to be tackled. Even though the space was taken away, the Blues looked for them little mini switches quite often. They looked for that overlap handball. They really did run in numbers, and the Blues inside 50 tackle count, as we'd expect, increased this week. The Blues brought that pressure, which ultimately won the game. Credit to Richmond, though. Richmond did know Carlton's rebound rate is really strong. They did set them traps for the Blues and did try and make it hard, but ultimately the Blues have many ways to skin a cat in that area. So these are real positive stats. Even though you're playing a weaker side, you've got to stick to your game plan. And what is really impressive, and you do see quite often, analysing the AFL from other teams, is genuinely you do see teams struggle against the weaker side and kind of go resort to type and change their game plan to keep the situation. This was an assured performance. There was a lot of Geelong, a lot of Richmond, a lot of Hawthorn back in the day about the Blues, and a lot of Sydney in the early part of the year this year, of just doing your game plan and backing it that it will eventually break the walls down. That first half, you saw the panic in the chat. We've heard stories at the game. I understand you get panicked at times. Well, I don't understand. I'm lying. But I understand people do panic. I just don't. But that is genuinely how a game goes. And for me, I've earned the respect. The players have earned the respect for me. That I know that they're going to do it. And they followed the game plan. And the game plan, once the door was breached, it was game over. This was really strong for the Blues. The Blues knew that their backline wasn't going to fall for it. There was a real reversion in the second half to just one of you staying deep. And that marks showing that +4 for the Blues percentage, real strong, and down there for Richmond. The Blues really did a number of playing all the players loose, and Mitch McGovern was the static. Mitch McGovern almost played that role that we saw that we played Marchbank in in finals, which was really successful, which frees Whittaker up. And this caused chaos in the inside 50s, particularly in the second half. And Whitterin's average position is almost a midfielder at times in that second half. So the Blues have really learned that lesson. Kajitsky did really well here at trying to find them leading patterns. But the Blues knew Bolter was a one-trick pony. He was going to stay forward, and the Blues really did negate that pretty well, knowing that that was just a stay-at-home target and then working the ball on the deck. So that's a real strong positive for the Blues, that they adjusted their zonal system to be a bit more fluid, which is quite a risk because it did backfire at times in the first half, and the Blues really worked that one there. Goals per inside 50, the Blues had an increase here, showing that third quarter particularly really helps. And obviously, so did Richmond. Richmond's inside 50s in that first half was spectacular. It was just very hard to maintain that. Once the Blues worked out it was going to be 4-on-4, that played into their favour. And the scores per inside 50, both sides about 8% down. Just shows the nature of the beast. It was a midfield slugfest for a half. So I was going to affect it. The Blues negating that, though, very superbly. But credit to Richmond where Richmond's true. They'll be all right. That shows good game management. We said it at the start. These guys are a flag-winning side. There's a good portion of these who are Premiership players. They really know how to manage a game. It's just the legs kind of gave out on them. And credit to Blues fitness department there. Rebound 50 rate. Again, as you'd expect, the Blues slight increase, albeit against an opposition that was really looking to target certain areas, and a massive decrease in Richmond, showing Carlton's pressure. This is really, really important because there is going to be times in games, and I want you to look at the Brisbane game we got knocked out. These were very similar data points of how Brisbane played us in the first half when we were winning, and their ability to adjust to another game plan, which was more akin to Richmond of really sitting back, taking Carlton's space away from the stoppage areas, which is how it... And Carlton's ability to adjust in game has really been exemplary over the last 4 weeks. And I feel, and I keep saying this, it's tougher against weaker sides because they'll really look to stifle it. They ain't looking to play ball. When you play a good side, like last week, I thought it really showcased it, where they were willing to go up a gear and play a bit more offensive. Richmond were never going to do that because they knew they were unstuck. That's really hard when you're playing a real stagnant, slow, methodical game, particularly when it started to rain. But the Blues are like, nah, this is our game plan, and our game plan is superior. And the intercept marks, like we said, making that zonal system a lot more loose and higher up, looking to take the risk and saying, go on, we'll take you on one-on-one, but do you want to dare go shallow? And the Blues feasted on that. And as we can see, both sides were very impressive one-on-one. Both sides played quite high up, trying to match the space. The Blues did it to match the lack of space in the midfield. They did it to try and get Carlton to kick long. Credit to Ben Miller here, though. Incredible game from him. Charlie found a way, as he always did, as did Noah Bolter with the goals out the back. But credit to them that it was a very zonal system. All in all, very impressed with the Blues. I'm excited. Am I as excited as last week? Probably not, but I am excited that we've seen a fluid game plan and another string to our bow. This was a real strong performance, and for you guys and girls watching at home, please just enjoy it, man. Enjoy it. I really want you to really enjoy these moments because I tell you, I've done this for a long time now. You guys and girls have been my friends for 5 years now. We've really grown together, and don't get distracted because you know what? One day we will be back to a rebuild. That will be inevitable. And I don't want anyone missing these moments because it's a joy to do these reviews for you guys and girls. It's a real joy when we're winning. And this is a good football side, man. We are in the mix. We are going to enjoy it. We're going to enjoy it. So cheer these boys home. Another strong performance. Real strong performance. GWS next week, a real strong outfit they are. A chance to really negate their hopes of being a top 6 side. So this is where we've got to go. We've got to go away from home, get that W, come back to Victoria and prepare to really run in finals home and cement this top 2 spot. Really important, that home route home for the Blues. Get around it. Peace, love and light, everyone. Pop out.
See her rolling up, Uber black Cadillac, high heel boots and a sexy body full of tats. Baby's bad, oh baby's hella